new revelations today from the Chicago Tribune that the Willow Creek megachurch based in South Barrington paid $3.25 million to settle lawsuits over child sex abuse by a church volunteer. That's the latest controversy for the church, undergoing a massive shift in leadership as waves of elders and church leaders resign in the wake of allegations against the megachurch's founder and spiritual leader. Pastor Bill Hybels has not admitted any wrongdoing, but he stepped down in April after a host of women accused him of inappropriate touching, comments, and even a long-term extramarital affair. Here to talk about the future of the troubled Willow Creek Church is Manya Brashear-Pashman, the Chicago Tribune's religion reporter who broke the story about Bill Hybels along with her colleague Jeff Cohen. Manya, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Now, as we just mentioned, your colleague at the Trib broke a story this afternoon that the church paid more than $3.25 million to settle lawsuits over sexual abuse of two developmentally disabled boys by a church volunteer in this instance. How much trouble is this church in?
Well, it remains to be seen. I mean, I think that the past almost 5 months have been a very turbulent time for Willow Creek, starting with the allegations that surfaced in March against Bill Hybels and were added to by allegations reported in Christianity Today magazine and then finally the New York Times. 10 women altogether have come forward and alleged that Bill Hybels acted inappropriately with them. And when I say inappropriate behavior, this is suggestive comments, extended hugs by a pastor who apparently didn't like to hug, and invitations to hotel rooms. So the church's response has evolved in the past 5 months, and so it remains to be seen what the next stage of that evolution will be and whether they can recover from it.
Give us a little bit of background on Willow Creek Church. How big is it? It's in South Barrington, we know that much.
So it was founded by Bill Hybels 42 years ago, now going on 43 years ago, in a rented movie theater in Palatine. Just a few members, and Bill Hybels went door to door asking people why they may not go to church and developed a model to bring the unchurched to church. It grew and grew, and thousands of people now attend Willow Creek. Their main campus is in South Barrington. They have 7 satellite campuses around the Chicagoland area. Up to 25,000 members go to worship there every weekend. And then they also have the Willow Creek Association, which is a group of about 11,000 churches globally, worldwide, that are loosely affiliated with Willow Creek in that they look to Willow Creek as a model of how to do church.
And I think the New York Times reported this church is the 5th largest megachurch in the country.
It
Sizable.
is definitely one of the largest, yes, yes.
So one woman, one of the accusers, said that she had a consensual affair with Pastor Hybels, but retracted her story. What happened there? So
she had confided in a friend years ago that this extramarital affair had taken place over a long period of time, about 14 years. Those conversations went on for about a year, and the friend, who was also a former church leader, thought that it was time to take this to the elders. The elders are charged with holding the pastor accountable at the church, and she thought this was something that Bill Hybels should be held accountable for, if true. And so she took it to the elders in order for them to do an inquiry. They confronted Bill Hybels. He denied it. An elder contacted the woman. She denied it. There was some talk about email exchanges between Bill Hybels and the woman, and an elder did discover that over 1,100 emails had been exchanged between the pastor and this woman over about a 2-year time period, but they couldn't access those emails, and therefore the investigation ended. There was a second investigation that was renewed later on, and there was just never any evidence presented that proved that this affair took place, plus the woman denied it, and as did Bill Hybels. So there was no need, the elders believed, to continue pushing this. But the former church leaders who were kind of gathering or growing in number with concerns, they disagreed and they continued to push.
So how did more allegations begin to come out then?
So the conversations continued. They started contacting other former church leaders, some of them women, because Willow Creek is known for being a progressive evangelical church that allows women to preach, empowers women to be teaching pastors and leaders. And so some of these leaders said, wait a minute, I had an awkward hug 10 years ago. Wait a minute. I had that moment when he invited me to stay a few extra days in Spain. That was one of the allegations by former teaching pastor Nancy Beach. Prominent, reputable women who had stories to share, and everybody started to recognize patterns in the stories that they were sharing. And so they pushed and pushed the elders over a 4-year time period, and then they finally, when they got nowhere, decided to come to the Tribune.
Hybels vigorously denied these accusations. At first, the church defended him and didn't believe the women. What changed?
That's a good question. It really has been an evolving response over this nearly 5-month period of time since the story broke in March. Indeed, Bill Hybels called some of the allegations flat-out lies. The elders defended them, so did the co-pastors. And then when Bill Hybels resigned or stepped down early, 6 months before he was supposed to retire, to get out of the way of the ministry, then the elders came forward and kind of offered a limited apology for maybe not all of the allegations were lies. Fast forward to early July, Steve Carter, the teaching pastor who had been named as one of Bill Hybels' successors, he posted a public apology on his personal blog, and that prompted Heather Larsen, the lead pastor, to step up into the pulpit the next night and give her own apology, and the elders to release a written statement. And then fast forward again to last week, and the allegation was reported, the most severe allegation was reported in the New York Times, and that prompted Steve Carter to immediately announce his resignation, which little did we know he had tendered weeks before, but the elders had asked him to stay. And then on Wednesday, Heather Larsen and the entire elder team announced that they were stepping down.
Hybels himself, he stepped down in the spring, but he still denies everything.
As far as we know, we haven't really heard much from Bill Hybels since he stepped down, and I believe the New York Times got a statement from him denying the most severe allegation, but that's the most recent we've heard from him. He has not offered comment or circled back to do anything. I should say when he stepped down, he did offer apologies for perhaps not listening and for reacting as defensively as he did when the allegations first surfaced, but that was the last that we've heard.
Hybels founded this church. Like, can they survive without him? And or after this latest revelation, are thousands of worshipers going to start leaving the church? Or Willow Creek Church specifically?
You know, that remains to be seen. There's a lot of faith in that ministry. It is a powerful ministry. Willow Creek does a lot of wonderful things for the community and around the globe. And the members realize that. And that's what makes this so sad, is this leader that has led them down this wonderful path and transformed thousands of lives might have had this dark side to him that they didn't know about, and they trusted him, and he let them down as far as they know. And so I think that it really remains to be seen. There's a lot of optimism about the interim pastor who has stepped in to guide them. There's a council being drawn together of outside Christian leaders to help them navigate this tumultuous time, and I think there's a lot of optimism there. But, you know, typically when people are unhappy with their church, they withhold their tithes, their contributions from the collection plate. Maybe they stop going, and maybe they start church shopping. So it really remains to be seen what road the Willow members will take.
Okay. Manya Brashear-Pashman, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Well, welcome. This is Pastor Jeff Short, and you are watching Christian Answers. And today I'm going to be revisiting a topic that I talked about a couple months ago, and that is what is happening at Willow Creek Community Church. There is a scandal going on at Willow Creek Community Church, and the significance of this is hard to tell, how big this will be and what the effects will be in the evangelical community. But evangelicals all over the world know all about Willow Creek because Willow Creek has influenced so many contemporary churches in how they do church and the styles and the techniques of reaching the lost people, the contemporary secular people, for the gospel. And so Bill Hybels has been a leader in evangelicalism for 3 or 4 decades now. And so his influence is massive. And so about 2-3 months ago, we did a program here on Christian Answers where the elders at Willow Creek Community Church had investigated a number of accusations by women over the last few years that Bill Hybels, the founding and lead pastor of the church, had acted inappropriately with women on a number of occasions, ranging from maybe inappropriate hugging or inappropriate speech or whatever, just some fairly small-scale offenses. And there was a major offense accusation, but the woman retracted that accusation. And so the elders, on 3 separate occasions when they investigated, they found that they concluded that Bill Hybels was not guilty of any inappropriate actions or speech toward women. And so that was their verdict, and I basically trusted that the elders of the church, being there on hand, seeing the evidence before them, would make that conclusion. And so I basically followed the elders of Willow Creek Community Church's conclusion and basically concluded myself, along with other Christians around the country and the world, that Bill Hybels is innocent of these accusations. Okay, I did criticize the elder board for being including women, because the Bible teaches that a woman should not teach or have authority over a man in the church. And so their elder board and having half of the members of the elder board women is a violation of that scripture. Also, the lead pastor is Heather Larsen, a female, and she is also in violation of scripture as far as being the main teacher in the church, or even a teacher in the main church. Being a woman, that is also forbidden by scripture. So I was critical of that, but I did accept the Willow Creek Elder Board conclusion that Bill Hybels was innocent of these accusations. So Bill Hybels resigned early. He retired early. He was planning on retiring in the fall. He retired in the spring. And so that was that. And so we had all hoped that this controversy would have died down, that the remaining accusations that might come in would have been of, again, a more minor and small, trivial sort, and that the church would continue on in its ministry as best it could and move forward. Well, we have had a couple weeks now of some pretty heavy issues that Willow Creek has had to deal with. It all started around the beginning of August when an article appeared in the New York Times that says that it interviewed a woman who used to work for the church who made some very serious accusations against Bill Hybels, and that she even alleged that there was more than just inappropriate touching, that there was actually some actual sexual contact. And so this is no doubt the most serious charge against Bill Hybels. So that appeared in the New York Times, August 5th, 2018. So that's not very long ago. And she sat down with a newspaper reporter for the New York Times, and she gave an interview to them. Now, why she didn't go to the elder board of Willow Creek, who was in charge of the investigation internally, why she didn't speak to them directly, why it was released through a secular organization, the New York Times, that it has no sympathy for churches or has no sympathy for Christianity either. Why she would go to that source to tell her story, I don't know. But it says something about she didn't feel that she would get a fair hearing meeting with the elders, which it seemed to me that they were fairly accurate and fair in their hearing of these women. Although, since Bill Hybels stepped down and retired early back in March, the elders and the pastors who are there now, the senior pastor, Heather Larsen, and then the teaching pastor, they have both come out publicly in front of the congregation and said that they are sorry that they have spoken accusatorily against the women who made accusations, and that they now believe, the elders and the leaders believe, that not all of the accusations that they leveled against Bill Hybels are false. And when I read that a few weeks ago, I thought to myself immediately, okay, which accusations against Bill Hybels did they not feel were entirely false. So, in other words, you have this general, vague statement that says, well, as elders of the Willow Creek Community Church, we have been reviewing our review of these accusations, and we concluded that maybe not all of the women were speaking falsely, and so we apologize to the women for not believing their stories. Well, my question immediately was, what accusation are you talking about? Are you talking about the woman who accused Bill Hybels, and this is going back 6 months now, are you talking about the woman who accused Bill Hybels of a long-term consensual affair, who then recanted of that accusation? So if you're saying that you don't believe all of the women's and all of the women's testimony is false, is hers false? And which testimony of hers is false? So was it the initial one that she said that was false, or is it this recantation, the last withdrawal of her accusation? Is that false? So again, there was more of a question mark than any clarification. But then along comes this big revelation in the New York Times, this latest accusation by a woman who got an entire article written up in the New York Times about her inappropriate relationship with Bill Hybels. So then we have Bill Hybels, after that interview occurs, telling the New York Times flat out that accusation is false. Total denial that this ever happened. So we're dealing with a situation here that either this woman is flat out lying or Bill Hybels is flat out lying. So we definitely have a situation where in the past you might say, well, it was one person's interpretation and another person misunderstood the situation. No, this is actually either the pastor, Bill Hybels, is lying or this woman is lying, because some of the things she said, you can't read it both ways. It's either got he's lying or she's lying. It can't be both and, the way it was being spun, some of these other accusations, which could be misinterpreted. An extended hug, what does that mean? An inappropriate hug, what does that mean? Maybe one person is interpreting the hug in a different way and then being offended by that, whereas the other person hugging might not have intended it that way, and so on and so forth. So this latest accusation by the woman in the New York Times article is by far the most damaging, and that is what prompted the one pastor of the Willow Creek Community Church, Stephen Carter, to resign a couple weeks ago. He said, having looked at this latest accusation, he now feels he cannot in good conscience work for Willow Creek. So what Stephen Carter is basically saying is now that he believes that Bill Hybels had been engaged in inappropriate sexual contact with this woman and maybe some other women because of his understanding of the testimonies that he's heard in addition to the initial 3 inquiries. And so he is convinced in his heart that Bill Hybels was not telling the truth and that Bill Hybels is actually guilty of some of the charges that he at first defended Hybels against. And so he resigned. Then the next thing that happens is that Heather Larsen, the actual lead pastor and Hybels' hand-picked heir apparent and heir of the lead pastor position, she comes out in front of the congregation a few days later and says that she resigns. And that as far as also the elders are concerned, the elder board came out and it too resigned and said the church needs a fresh leadership and that they need to step aside because they failed in their task to adequately investigate these charges. So as you can see, things have escalated quite a bit from when I first reported this in March, And so I want to walk through some of the article of this one New York Times article, the August 8th, 2018 article entitled, Willow Creek's Church's Top Leadership Resigns Over Allegations Against Bill Hybels. So I just want to read this article to you and then make some comments and raise some questions and figure out where this all is going so that we can sort out what we want to believe based on the evidence and what seems to be the appropriate response to all of this. Okay, the article goes, the lead pastor and the entire board of elders resigned on Wednesday night from Willow Creek Community Church, one of the nation's most influential evangelical congregations, saying that they had made a mistake by failing to believe the women who accused the Reverend Bill Hybels, the church founding pastor, of sexual harassment. So when we read that statement saying that they failed and made a mistake by failing to believe the women who accused Reverend Bill Hybels, I don't understand what that means. Are they sorry that they didn't believe everything every woman accused Bill Hybels of? Are they sorry to the church for failing to believe some of the women who made accusations against the church? But failing to believe the women, what is that saying? Is it saying that they were wrong in questioning the women who came forward who accused their pastor of sexual misconduct? Isn't it appropriate to question women who are coming forward accusing the pastor of the church for inappropriate conduct? It doesn't mean you don't listen to them. And in fact, I think every Christian should want to listen to the accusations made, and then you want to test them and look at the evidence and reason and have a process of sifting and sorting and trying to figure out who is telling the truth and who isn't, or who is mistaken and who isn't. But to apologize for not believing the women, it just seems like they're saying, well, we should have believed every accusation made by every woman, and for not doing so, we're sorry for that. I don't see where they need to be sorry for not believing every woman's accusation against Bill Hybels. You would want to hear every woman's accusation against the founding pastor, but believing every woman's accusation against the pastor, I don't think that's appropriate. I don't think that's an appropriate position to take when you're investigating something, saying, well, we believe every witness that comes before us. No, you want to listen to every witness and then evaluate whether they're telling the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. That's what a proper response would be. To all the women who have come forward, said Missy Rasmussen, one of the 9 elders, speaking to the hushed congregation, we are sorry that we added to your pain. Again, to all the women who came forward, they're apologizing for adding to their pain. That's assuming that every single woman and every single accusation they made against the pastor is true and absolutely true, unqualified true. Are they trying to say we didn't listen to you or that we didn't believe you? There's a big difference between saying we didn't listen to you and that we didn't believe you. It says, we have no reason to not believe any of you. We are sorry that our initial statements were so insensitive, defensive, and reflexively protective of Bill, she said, while some in the congregation in South Barrington wept openly. We exhort Bill to acknowledge his sin and publicly apologize. Again, this gives the impression they are apologizing to every single woman and every single accusation they made that they were skeptical of. And that now they are exhorting Bill to confess his sin and publicly apologize. In other words, according to this statement here, they are now saying that every woman who's made an accusation against Bill Hybels is totally believable, and they are to believe, and they believe her, all of them, and that Bill's denial they reject. But can't be, because logically there was one woman who made an accusation of an affair with Bill Hybels who recanted of the accusation. So which one of those statements from this woman do they believe? They can't believe all of her statements, because she at first said she had an affair with Bill Hybels. Then she said she didn't have an affair with Bill Hybels. So if they believe the first one, then they can't believe the second one. If they believe the second one, they can't believe the first one. But to say we believe all of these women doesn't make any sense when you have some who are recanting and saying, no, I didn't actually have an affair with Bill Hybels. I made that up. So it's very, very confusing as to what they're doing now. The senior pastor of the church says that she apologizes to the women, and now the elders apologize to the women. Now, clearly they're saying that they believe that Bill Hybels lied and that he was not telling the truth. But it doesn't make sense in light of the contradictory accusations of some of these women. It was a shocking blow for the church that has cast itself as a model of effective leadership for churches worldwide, and it comes at a particular fraught moment for Willow Creek's international network of supporters. So, on Thursday, the Willow Creek Association annual Global Leadership Summit, watched by nearly 700 churches and 500,000 people worldwide, began in the same auditorium where the resignations were announced. Until this year, Bill Hybels had hosted this event. Okay, so they basically say there's no path for Bill Hybels to come back to the Global Leadership event. Okay. And then on Wednesday night, the church's lead pastor, Heather Larsen, said she was stepping down because trust had been broken by leadership and it doesn't return quickly. There is urgency to move us in a better direction. She turned the leadership over to Steve Gillen, who has been on the Willow Creek staff for over 20 years, most recently as lead pastor of the North Shore site. Miss Rasmussen, the elder, said the church has also hired an outside expert to conduct a robust review of its governance. So we have the entire elders board resigning, all of the lead pastors resigning over this most recent allegation. So that's just the tip of the iceberg. I'm going to take another show to break it down even further. So thank you for watching. We'll see you back next week on another edition of Christian Answers. God bless.